They say you hear a certain silence when your heart breaks. I didn't. What I heard was the low hum of the air conditioner above the doorway, the metallic clink of the elevator down the hall, her breath catching in her throat like she'd swallowed something sharp. No dramatic collapse, no cinematic thunder, just a kind of small, cold sound that remind you how indifferent the world is to your suffering. And I stood there watching him touch her, not like a man in love, not even like someone consumed by desire. It was something else entirely, possession, that smug, casual kind of dominance you find in boardrooms or on battlefields. His hand slipped beneath her skirt, 2 fingers too bold, too practiced. He looked me in the eye, tilted his head slightly, and said it with a smirk like it was a punchline. She's mine now. Leave, or we settle this man to man. There was a pause, maybe a second or 2. Then I smiled, not because it was funny, far from it. I smiled because that moment, it all finally clicked. That was it, the last straw, the final insult, a hand where it didn't belong, a challenge disguised as a joke. And just like that, the part of me I'd been keeping buried stirred to life. 10 minutes later, he couldn't walk, couldn't stand, couldn't speak. I didn't scream, didn't curse, didn't even breathe hard. I dismantled him, calmly, methodically, like someone taking apart an old watch. I knew exactly what I was doing. The tibia breaks with a wet, muffled snap. The jaw, that one's easy. Pivot your heel just right. Ribs are trickier, but even they give way with enough pressure. It wasn't rage. It was precision. He never saw it coming. Men like him rarely do. They mistake silence for weakness. They never notice how carefully we watch, how long we wait. But here's the thing. None of that was the worst part. Not the broken bones. Not the quiet aftermath. Not even the blood. The worst part happened days earlier. In whispers. In side glances. In tiny betrayals that didn't belong in a shared kitchen. She turned the coffee mug's handle away from me. Let her phone ring at night without checking it. Just stared into nothing, like the sound didn't matter. She met him 6 months before. Alpha, she called him. Not to me, to her sister. I wasn't supposed to hear it. She thought I was asleep. Alpha, like some prize animal. And I guess that's what it was always about. Power. His kind was loud and theatrical. Expensive suits, cologne reeking of middle-aged desperation. The kind of man who walks into a room and announces himself. Mine? Mine lived in shadows, in books and bruised knuckles. It didn't walk, it waited. I saw the signs early. An unfamiliar earring left behind in the bathroom, his scent lingering on our guest towels. A single wine glass hidden behind the record shelf. Lipstick on the rim that wasn't hers. She didn't lie. She just withheld. And in some ways, that's worse. A lie gives you something to fight. Omission leaves you with silence. Then came the message. He sent it from her phone. Maybe drunk, maybe just that arrogant. You don't satisfy her anymore. Walk away before I make you. I read it 3 times. Not because I didn't understand, but because I couldn't believe anyone could be so fundamentally small. Everything after that happened fast. She said she had to work late. I followed her. Wexler Hotel. Room 8004. It was raining. I remember that because the rain didn't feel cold, just wet, pointless. I knocked. He opened the door, shirt open, belt halfway undone, drink in hand. He looked at me like I was a hotel clerk bringing bad news. She sat on the edge of the bed, eyes wide, lips parted like she wanted to speak, but forgot how. That's when he touched her. That's when he smiled. And that's when I decided. There's a silence that comes after violence that isn't peace. It's absence. Absence of fear, of illusion, of anything recognizably human. He ended up twisted on the floor, body mangled, shape unrecognizable. I looked at her. She didn't scream, didn't cry, just stared at me like she didn't know who I was anymore. And I walked out. He lived, barely, jaw wired shut, both legs in casts. Something wrong in his spine. Doctors said he'd never run again, could barely carry groceries. His voice came out a whisper, like every word was a quiet apology. She reached out once, left a letter in the mailbox. I burned it, not out of hate. I don't hate her, but because the story had already ended. And sometimes the only way to live with betrayal is to let silence do the talking. What I learned is this. Some people mistake patience for weakness, but still water? It's not soft. It just waits for the perfect moment to drown you. No, I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm not ashamed either, because there are lines you never cross. And if you do, you better hope the man on the other side isn't me.